Well, hello everyone, and welcome along. Welcome along to this very special webinar. It's on how to create scalable and engaging corporate training in 2025. The topic of today is no surprise. It's talking about AI and where will AI take us? Are us humans out of a job? Not likely, but we are spoilt for choice. So today, let's cut through the noise. We're going to walk you through some very practical ways to build corporate immersive training at scale, but also we're going to look at the broader landscape. So today's webinar is in two parts. Stick around for both. The first part is a broad overview of AI and the trends we're seeing globally. So if you're in one part of the world, you may be seeing something very different to another part of the world, and that might be able to help you. The second part of the webinar is very special. It is hands-on, practical experience on how to create immersive, interactive training using AI. So we'll show you very practical ways to do that. So in a moment, our EdTech insiders will join us to give us that hands-on advice. We're going to future-proof the way you do staff training. Now, I'd like to invite you to join our chat at any time. The chat is open. From there, you can ask any question of our two tech insiders when they join the stage or during their presentation. But why don't you start? Why don't you kick off? Tell us where you're from. Tell us maybe what town you're from. Do a little bit of a shout out, and any questions will be answered as we go. So I'd like to invite now to the stage an intro to both Stine and Harald. Harald is a tech advisor. He works as account executive. His bread and butter is understanding where AI is going. Secondly, Stine. We're going to hear from what an instructional designer thinks AI is doing for the workload of someone who's designing training for people every single day. If you're not sure who We Are Learning is, well, we are the next generation course authoring tool for immersive learning. And this is the latest technology coming out of Scandinavia, and we deal with companies all over the world. Just at the bottom there's a small QR code. You can book a demo with myself or Stine. If you like what you see today and you would love a little bit of one-to-one inspiration or a bit of help, then we're happy to do that. But like I said, this is the latest tech coming out of Norway and Scandinavia and spread to the world. That's the We Are team. But maybe, firstly, Harald, maybe just a few words from you and a bit of an intro for yourself.
Absolutely. And it's lovely to see some familiar faces in the chat and also meet some new folks from all over the world. So my name is Harald, or Harald if you want to say it in the Norwegian way. I'm a big learning nerd. I've worked in this industry now for soon to be 7 years, and I work at Docebo as an account executive and tech advisor to help clients to understand the power of learning technology and also what could AI bring for them in the future. So really excited to be sharing some of those insights with you today.
Stine, what about you?
Yeah, what about me? So my name is Stine, and I am a senior instructional designer and a pedagogue working in We Are and helping our customers getting started, and also running our community, really giving some insight tips on how to create the immersive learning inside We Are. And I've done a lot of content creation over the years, so this is a webinar I'm super excited for.
Yeah, so for our audience today, over the next 60 minutes, you're going to hear two perspectives. You're going to hear a global perspective about AI, the trends and where we're going. That's Harald in just a moment. And the second part, very special, Stine's view as an instructional designer. Where do learning designers think the power of AI is and where isn't it? But we might do a little poll just to kick off. So I can see a few people have said hello from South Africa, London. We've got snowy Norway, England, Amsterdam, Australia. Tell me, have you used AI to create staff training? Maybe that's our first poll that we can kick off. Have you used AI to create learning and development? So, many times, just a little bit, or maybe none at all. Maybe that's why you've joined us today. So we're just waiting for some of the poll results to come through. And then Harald's going to give us his presentation. We've got a hello from Nairobi. Wow. Hello, Indusha. Fantastic. Texas as well. Really fantastic. Just having a look at the poll. Maybe Stine lets us know if that's coming up in real time or not, I don't know.
It is. So if you click on the poll and then the eye on the right side there, you'll see the results.
Yeah. Cool. So what we can see in just a very quick test of a minute, about 70% of people who are live right now with us on this very special webinar have used AI to create learning and development to some extent. Just 1%, below 1% have done not at all. So I think what better segue than to hand over to Harald to see what he's seeing globally, the effect of AI across the world on learning and development. Harald, over to you.
Thank you so much, Glenn. And I'll start sharing my screen here. And this is a topic near and dear to my heart. So excited to share it with you, but I also want it to be interactive. Is there an area that stands out to you? Put it in the chat and Glenn and team will monitor. Feel free to interrupt me at any time. Just a few facts, kind of how have I come into this weird and wonderful place that's L&D. I moved from the States when I was at university, moved to London, and my first job was with a learning tech company, and I've been with Docebo for 5.5 years. I also run what's called the Learning Tech Jungle newsletter on LinkedIn, so feel free to check it out. Here I kind of go down different rabbit holes of learning technology, including many on AI, so if that's something that interests you, please check it out. Also working at Docebo, we have great partners like we are and others, as well as our own learning platform that we are providing for clients. So if this is something that interests you, feel free to check that out. So I'm going to be taking you through a kind of umbrella view of what's going on in terms of AI, what's happening in the world of L&D, and how can you really use this as an L&D professional to get ahead in 2025. So I'll start by trying to coin a little bit of a term of learning AI. And a lot of these types of slides and presentations are coming from actually one of Docebo's own guides on how to understand AI that I'm going to link at the end. So something that you can bring with you for the road afterwards. So I'm going to be saying that learning AI is an umbrella term of AI products, models, and agents made specifically to support learning professionals. They generally fall under a couple of buckets, which is the natural language processing or NLP bucket, speech, or vision categories. So it's a bit of a small kind of image, but you could see these are typically the ones where we're seeing a lot of work. For example, in NLP, we see the content aspects there. So these are where we see a lot of work within AI and where vendors are racing to the forefront to try to bring amazing products to the market in quick ways. I wanted to just level set a little bit and say, before we jump headfirst into AI, let's think what we would use AI for. And at the top here, there's a very common kind of bridge where I need to provide training. People are coming to me. All right. So then you build some content regarding it. And AI could be used in amazing ways. But maybe we could be a little bit more strategic and think, how can I support business performance as opposed to just create training for training's sake? So a really good analyst called Egla, and you can see her name here at the bottom, built this really good guide for how we could use AI for different aspects like skills intelligence, data-informed decision-making, performance consulting, which I think is really the outcome we want to have as L&D professionals, skills practice, and performance support. So what I want you to take away from a presentation is AI could be used much more than just content creation, but it could also be used very tactfully in amazing tools like we are. So here are some key use cases of learning AI. The first one is content creation, and Stine is going to be showing you some amazing work on how you can do that in the We Are tool. Also want to talk to you about deep search. Learners today have really high demands when it comes to learning content. If it doesn't feel more engaging than social platforms, they don't really want to consume a new platform. So there's a really high bar of how can you provide search that's not just surface level, but really index or specific level. So if you have a video, how can you find minute 46 within that using AI to provide better experiences? We're also talking about coaching and chatbots. Topics like agentic AI or using AI agents is becoming more popular. So how can we as L&D teams build coaches that allow people to learn on their terms in their flow of work? And then skills is a really big aspect as well. We're moving from a traditional way of hiring, and a lot of organizations want to become a skills-based organization. This really means that you hire less due to roles and more due to the skills that someone has. This is a whole new shift in L&D, and AI can help us take larger skills taxonomies hosted in learning platforms or specific talent or HR tools and really deliver that learning upon that taxonomy. So here we see some use cases of AI. I'm not going to dive too deep into this, as we could be here all day with you guys, but if anyone has any particular interest here, feel free to connect with me afterwards and I can share some resources or set up a one-to-one chat to explore any of these with you. So this is a pretty interesting graph that Docebo, the VP of AI, presented when we had kind of a client workshop regarding AI strategy and how this could be used. So on the left side, you see the traditional world of instructional design where everything is manual. You're picking up a tool, you're building it from scratch, and you're doing everything in a manual way. You can see here, as we're moving to the right, AI is doing more of the heavy lifting. So we're seeing a shift where teams are moving further and further to the right. And this is actually a perfect segue to using tools like we are. How can you do AI-assisted content creation? Doesn't mean that we're taking the human out of it. In fact, we're just elevating or augmenting human work by the way that we can move this here. So we're seeing more and more teams move from 0 to 1, 1 to 2, etc. And seen from the poll here initially, it seems like a lot of people have used it in some ways, but maybe want to try to explore a little bit further with this in 2025. So I want to invite you to think of AI not just in the process of creating content, but how you create ideas, how you come up with concepts that you could put into content. So from this aspect, you can see creative ideation. As an example, when I write a new article on LinkedIn, I typically have a topic in mind and I'll use ChatGPT to give me some rough structures. I'll then refine that myself. Maybe I'll ask a peer or someone else to take a look over it before I publish. So AI doesn't replace my work. It just fast tracks it and make it a little bit quicker. So if you want to put scripts into a tool like we are, AI could be a really good tool to be able to manage that. So a lot of people have used Google traditionally, but we're seeing new tools such as obviously ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot, or my favorites I call Perplexity, which is kind of like a better search engine, which can allow that creative ideation to take place. Also research and analysis. Here I'll make a quick comment that you need to be really focused on the research that AI produces. They can produce some great stuff, or sometimes they can slip up a little bit. So you need to have this creative as well as critical lens in mind when you're looking at AI. Data-driven insights, the same, but also AI can help with things like adaptation and localization. If you have a really large audience, how can you create content and then localize that in different languages? As well as the kind of generation and the kind of intelligent assistance that we're seeing here as well. So with the help of AI, we can more easily track 4 key categories of data. This is pedagogical data, focus on the data's relationship to the learning aims and pedagogical frameworks applied. As L&D professionals, we need to think of what makes good pedagogical sense, not just using AI, but using pedagogically informed AI that's relevant to the learning we want to do. Linguistic data, key information about the language produced by generative AI that's basically consumed by the learner. It's interaction data and it's user data. And these are 4 key buckets of how you can provide where we're going in terms of AI and what's called hyper-personalization. Hyper-personalization would mean you're coming into a system and the system knows you. It knows your preferences. You prefer PDF over a video, the system will know it. You prefer long form versus short form, the system will know it. So we're going to a place where the system knows you and can curate your experience in a very unique way. And this is kind of when ChatGPT came out, it felt like a distant memory of how we're getting towards kind of very assisted AI frameworks. This is not too far off. I would say within a couple of years, this is going to become the norm of L&D and how things are working. There's also a very interesting play here that for a system to be intelligent, it needs the content produced to be intelligent. So the quality of AI needs the right input to have a right output. So from this perspective, you need to use tools like we are, other tools on the market to build pedagogically sound content to put into learning platforms such as Docebo or otherwise to build this hyper-personalization. So there needs to be a bridge from content to platform, and these things need to work in unison. But it's essentially a very exciting time for anyone working in L&D. And I think we're in the very early stages of really seeing a shift and disruption within our industry. I want to take a very quick comment on what you should avoid with AI. And this is something I'm very passionate about because I feel like a lot of folks may be approaching AI in slightly the wrong direction. You don't want to be this guy right here. And what you shouldn't do is assume AI will solve all your problems. It's essentially a toolbox, but you need to use the right tool for the right task. And that's where ourselves and vendors need to support you in that direction. AI is not a learning strategy. AI is a good way to enable your learning strategy to take place. It's really important that you know your learning strategy before you start working with AI. You also don't want to solve the wrong problems faster. There's a concept in the industry called content chaos, which essentially means there's too much content out there. And you don't want to have 100 courses that are low quality for users. You want essentially to have better quality courses that are personalized. So what's wrong with this sequence of events? Content generation, creation, to skills development, to learning strategy, to business strategy. In my opinion, it should be reversed. You start with a business strategy. What drivers, what growth areas do you see in the business? How can you form a learning strategy around that? How can you then fuel skills development? And lastly, how can you build content to support that aspect? So this was a quick run through of the world of AI, which is very exciting. And I'm happy to stop from any questions in the chat, Glenn, or generally any thoughts from the audience.
Harald, that was amazing. Fantastic insight into what you're seeing. I've got a few questions. And firstly, I'll just summarize what you talked about. Number one, you talked about AI has the ability to create certain forms of content faster. Number two, and I wrote this in the chat, AI is not a learning strategy, but I think a lot of our learning designers already know that. Number three, this idea of adaptive learning, so that AI will know you as the learner. I'm curious, question number one, how far away are we from that scenario where you think most learning platforms will try and do some type of adaptive learning pathways?
So I think adaptive learning can come on the content or the platform side. It kind of depends on which side that you're looking. There's adaptive scorms currently that's built in different ways. But if we're thinking of how far away we are, you really need to think of how quickly is large language models moving. So if we're seeing the pace of that, what vendors like Docebo and others are trying to do is build a translation layer between a large language model and essentially the intelligence we want to have in the system. So if you asked me a year ago, I might say 5 years. My best guess, 2 to 3 years. I think this is the norm that we're seeing from clients, that if you're going in and you're not getting essentially what I talked about in the system, they're not going to want to engage with it.
Wow. Are you hearing that, guys? 2 to 3 years is the projected time frame from our Tech Insider for adaptive learning across many LMSs. Question number two, Harald, the one that came to mind when you were doing your presentation, because the ability to create content has, I guess there's a perception that AI makes it faster and easier. What level of pressure do you see from maybe not so much the learning design managers, but maybe one tier above to a generic general manager pushing down on their team saying, well, I've given you the AI tool now. You can do twice the work. You can pump out more courses. You can do more training.
Yeah, this is a critical aspect, because as L&D professionals, if we give the keys away to AI and not teaching people about pedagogically sound principles or how people want to learn, we're essentially kind of sailing away with our kind of livelihood without telling people how they should be using it. So I see L&D owning the keys, but giving the keys away to different people. So as an example, you can build really strong templates that are pedagogically sound that people can then use to create content, or you can oversee. So I see L&Ds as architects of experiences, but you should give people the keys to play around with it as well. But it's a critical kind of change management component there when we're talking about AI. And it's very tempting to produce a lot of things really fast, but it actually makes it worse than where you started from.
So the last question to you, you're predominantly based in Europe. What do you see the difference between the world globally? For those of us, I mean, I can just, again, on the chat, we've got people from England, Amsterdam, Uruguay, Texas, Oslo, Nairobi. What parts of the world are using AI in different ways? Are you seeing things different in the Americas or the African continent versus Europe?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say there's both the research element of where they're producing these companies, which a lot as similar with the internet boom has been in kind of West Coast US and Silicon Valley. We're also seeing parts of Europe being more cautious about how to use it and making sure it's used in the right way. So I would say there's more thought going into how it's used efficiently and ethically in Europe than maybe more emerging economies that are jumping on it really quickly. So it's a balancing act because they're finding really unique use cases for it. We've heard of clients using AI tools in rural Africa to do certain things, but at the same time, it needs to be done in an ethical way. So this is where you really need to keep this balance of innovation versus ethics and making sure it's done in a good way. So I think everyone's tinkering with it, but a real fine balance of kind of progress versus ethics there, I'd say.
So right now, Harald will stick around for us in the chat. Please shoot him a question. The chat is live. You can ask any questions of Harald. And we're going to invite Stine now to come on stage. And this is the second part of the webinar. So Harald has given us a framework. He's told us where we are in the world today. Where are we going with AI? And it sounds like we as learning designers, Stine, we're not getting replaced just yet. That's the good news. But what does it mean for you? If you're an instructional designer, how do you practically put AI in place? We've got this huge disruptor called AI, which is affecting every part of L&D. So where does it go from here? Stine, maybe you've got the floor when you're ready, because we're going to get some very practical hands-on advice now of how to make learning design at scale.
Thank you.
And just before we do, we actually might do a quick poll as well, because I'm curious, of everyone who's joined today, what are you using AI for? Harald already gave us a few different ideas, but what are you using it for? So there's a poll that's just opened. Take a minute in the next 60 seconds to let us know particularly how are you using artificial intelligence in the world of L&D? And as that poll comes in, we'll just take a look in just a moment. Now, what's really interesting, I mean, this was only a handful of people in the first 10 seconds, but already there's a huge disparity here. So, number one, it's what Harald talked about. Speeding up content creation is the number one use. A whopping over 70% of people are saying that it is the fastest way to go from 0 to 100. If you have an idea in your head, how do you create a framework from which you then can change it? Just 7% for both personalization of learning experiences, and the last part is analyzing learning data, which I think Harald's right. I think we are probably a year or two away from where that becomes the norm inside an adaptive learning pathway for an LMS. So Stine, we're giving you the floor. What does it mean to you, AI in building scalable, engaging corporate training?
Thank you. For sure, AI is a game changer for instructional designers. And I think the poll is very interesting. Like the majority uses AI for content production. But as I would like to kind of challenge you a bit, is that, okay, we can now create content faster, but are we actually creating the same kind of content just faster? What kind of possibilities do we have now out there to create other types of learning material? So that is what I want to quickly touch upon and also show you inside VR. And I'm very excited to show you this great story we have been working on. Firstly, I'm going to share my slides.
There's a gentleman named Jonathan Mills who's just said helping with script writing. I think that's a huge one. For those of us who struggle with script writing on a weekly basis, AI is a fantastic way of putting a framework together. Yes, Las Petra has just said 100%, Jonathan, you're correct.
Yeah, and I use it myself as well to really get, if you have an idea, but you want to have that extra help, you have AI to help you out with. And I think all instructional designers now do the same. So yeah, a huge help, I would say. I just want to like to continue here. So in regards to AI, it's been mentioned also by Harald. Yes, AI is for sure a game changer for instructional designers. You can now create content much faster than ever before. And picking up on the the graph that Harald was showing called the 6 levels of learning design automation. I had a look at that one, and I think that one's actually very interesting because you can see that we are moving now from a more resource-intensive way of creating content. So for instructional designers, before AI, there were no automation, and we had to do all the work ourselves. So we had to do the script writing, the animation, the editing, everything by ourselves. And I for sure have been there for many years. But now we're moving more towards the more engaging, scalable way of delivering training. And that means that with AI, we have, of course, more automation, but we also see new possibilities when it comes to creating more interactive learning content. And of course, with AI, we definitely see more possibilities in creating dynamic, more personalized content. And it was also mentioned by Harald, the term adaptive learning. And I think that one is so interesting to talk about, and we could have a separate webinar about this. And I think this is a goal for a lot of instructional designers out there, to create an adaptive learning or an adaptive training or adaptive course. And yes, with AI, you can create content faster, but what other things can we do? Can we do more? Yes, we can create a script faster, or we can have automation in regards to animation and so on. But what other things can AI help us with? And I think adaptive learning is a very important term here. And that means that with AI, we can now deliver adaptive learning, meaning that we use technology and make custom learning paths that are automatically adjusted based on the learner's feedback. So we'll provide them that exact content or training they need based on their feedback. And now we have that possibility. And that is also something we offer inside VR. And that is what I'm going to show you as well. It has been mentioned. Today, I would like to show you a story that we have created for XXL. XXL is one of the market leaders with sporting equipment in the Nordic, and they gave us some content, and we wanted to see what can we do with this quite extensive documentation, I would say, with sales training for those working in the stores. What can we do with this? What kind of cool things can we actually create with VR? And also, XXL is using Docebo as their LMS platform. So as I mentioned, XXL gave us a lot of documentation that they give out to those working in the stores. So those working selling equipment in the different retail stores, they called it 5 sales steps. And we broke this document down quite a bit. And we had great help from AI. So we did a lot of prompting, really like finding what this document is actually telling the learners, what is like the core here. And based on that document, we also created different scenarios. Also helped by AI, different scenarios in a retail setting. And within it wasn't a lot of time. So I just talked to my colleague here, Lars Petter, like how long did we actually use for this story to be created? And you can say we roughly used around a bit over an hour and so to create the whole story itself. So we went from having this document, did a lot of prompting, adjusting, refining of the script, and then doing actually the animation inside VR. And compared to before AI, there is definitely a game changer here. And again, what I will show you now is a scenario scenario training for XXL employees. So we are following this XXL employee meeting a customer that needs help. And the scenario is built on it's a teacher, a moderator, kind of talking about what you will learn. So saying like, you will now enter this scenario, you will meet this and this customer, and giving you feedback throughout this session. And we have built this on you will get responses, meaning buttons you need to click on to be able to proceed. But I have also added a new feature that we launched not too long ago, called Open Response. So based on free speech, me actually talking in the microphone or writing, giving input, I will be routed to the correct branch in the script. So I'll just go ahead and preview this story now, so you see a bit. And here I'll preview it for quite a bit, so you kind of see how it all plays out.
Just as Stine is finding that link, our webinar poll, the data has just changed just a little bit here. Over 15% of you saying that you use AI for enhanced engagement inside your training modules.
Good. Okay, so here we have the story. I'll just go hit the play button.
Welcome. Here at XXL, sales are about more than just products, it's about people. Our goal is to give every customer an experience that makes them want to come back again and again. In this course, you'll learn about the 5 sales steps that will help you succeed. These steps are 1. Meet the customer. 2. Needs analysis. 3. Present the solution. 4. Handle objections. And 5. Close the sale. You will also learn about how to build trust and create excellent customer experiences. Through interactive scenarios, you'll play the role of a sales associate, while the sales coach provides guidance and feedback. Let's get started. Are you ready?
And so now we have gotten an introduction to everything, and the video stops, and I actually need to say yes in this microphone, or I can write. I'll just hit the mic here. Yes.
That's just great. Step 1 in the sales process is meet the customer. This first meeting with the customer is crucial. A good first impression builds trust and makes the customer feel comfortable. Remember, be proactive, friendly, and professional. A customer enters the store and looks around uncertainly. What do you do?
And now I have 3 options. What do I actually need to do? Do I need to approach the customer, say, how can I help? Wait for the customer to approach me, or nod at the customer and continue with my tasks? I'll go for the first one.
Hi, how can I help you?
Hi, I'm looking for some shoes.
Great, this is the right choice. A friendly smile and an open question provide the customer with a positive and reassuring start. Now let's move over to the next step of the sales process, needs analysis. Needs analysis is about understanding the customer. Use open-ended questions to gather as much information as possible and show that you're actively listening. This builds trust and helps you find the best solution.
I need shoes for training.
Let me see.
And again, here you have this open response. And we have also enabled something called like a user tips. So here I get some kind of guidelines on what I should say. So I get a hint saying I should ask what she will use these shoes for. Sure, but what will you use the shoes for? Will you be running in the forest, for example?
I mostly do strength training, but I also run occasionally. I'm looking for shoes that can support both, you know? Any recommendations?
Perfect. This is the right approach. An open-ended question gives the customer space to explain their needs, which helps you make tailored recommendations.
Yes, I think we should end it there. So this is a great example of how you can use AI to create something different, something more adaptive, more interactive, and also more engaging for the learners. They can't just see 3 buttons and go for A, B, or C, but they actually need to use their microphone, or they can write, and based on that, AI will route me to the correct branch. So I think I'll just show you also behind the scenes, so a bit about VR, so you see how easy it is for you to do this yourself. I did mention before I went into VR that we used approximately a bit over an hour to create this story, and that is going from this document to this whole animation. It's quite extensive one. You have only seen, I would say you only seen 40%, 30%. So I see also my colleague here, Maria, has written in the chat giving you the URL to the story. So after this webinar, check out that URL and take the whole story itself, and I can see how you kind of progress in these different sales steps. Good. Okay, so I'll just go out of this preview, and here you see our node map, and you see what we have created here. It's a classic branch scenarios with 3 options leading to different feedbacks and then going back again, leading in the same path. And zooming in her bits, I'll just go to one of our nodes. So this is our node map, and these are nodes. And here you can write your script. And of course, we have also AI included here, so you can get help improving your script directly inside our node map. So then again, I can be writing the script here. One other cool thing I would like to show you is that our characters are 3D characters. So I'll just hit this event node here, and you can see you can move them around. You can make them bigger. You can make them smaller. It's all up to you. So that is something I really like with VR, that you have full control of how the scene will play out. And also we went from different scenes, so having an kind of someone introducing the story. You have him here, there we go, and also going then inside the store and seeing like more hands-on how this could play out. So again, these can be turned around, and you can put up some really cool scenes here very easily. One other thing I would like to show you is how you animate the characters. So to animate them, you just hit this node here and click Studio. And here you can really play around if you would like. So the characters can have all sorts of body language, body odors. We even have intoxicated. So it's all up to you what you would like them to play out. And we also recently launched laying in bed, laying in sofa. Again, a lot of different ones you can play along with. And other than that, for the different body idols, you can also, of course, set their facial expression and where they are looking. So here again, we just launched this where you can move him around and make him look other directions too. On top of that, you can also add different gestures, so more specific, like thumbs up, clapping, or whatever. Again, this library is growing quite fast. We have more neutral ones, but we also have very distinct ones. They can even do adapt. So again, here it's really fun to play around and see what you can make them do. Yes. We also have the light blue is the AI voice. You can of course record your own voice if you would like them to have your voice. We are integrated with Azure and also 11 Labs, and of course you have a lot of different voices to choose from your characters. So I'll just preview this to you now. Here you go. You have Chris, and you even have a Klaus one.
Learning is not just about answers, but
in learning, we find the courage to embrace
to recoup revenue losses.
Yeah, I guess you will find one of your favorites here. This is also quite, it's also growing quite heavily. Good. Going back to our node map, I would also want to show you how now you have two characters in your scene, and you can play around. One person can be the one speaking per node. They can have a conversation, and you can also animate them one by one. So you have the full control of how this should play out. As an instructional designer, I also like to show you or tell you that it's very easy to create a branch scenario inside VR. So what I showed you here, I'll just play it here. This open response, meaning that I actually need to speak. This is how it looks behind the scenes. So for me as an instructional designer, I add my different outcomes. So here I would say yes, and here I would say something like no, and here is a no match. So if I don't say yes or no, I'll hit the no match node, and the character will try to route me again. So I could say, for example, is it raining outside? And the character will say, I don't know, but today I would like to talk about shoes. So he'll try to loop me back again. And of course, I have the full control over how many times I am allowed to make a mistake. I think this is, it's very visual, very easy for an instructional designer to create these interactive, adaptive stories. I often feel like when you're talking to this AI character, it kind of ends up in an endless loop and it doesn't really stop. But here we have really fine-tuned, so it's easy for you, okay? If you say something around, yes, AI will route you to this branch, and you will continue on this path. One other thing we have also enabled is something called AI rephrase. So I can toggle this on, and so if I say, no, I'm not ready, then the character will reply, are you sure? You look ready to me, let's go. But if I say something a bit different, but it's in regard to the no section, the character will kind of adjust based on what I am saying. So we will have a conversation. He will say something around like that, but he will adjust so the conversation will actually be a natural conversation where you're talking to an AI character. Yeah, I don't think I should go in so much further into detail. At the end here, I'll just go all the way at the end here. You can, of course, also add further nodes. So it's very visual. Here you have the different responses, and I can say, okay, I would like to continue on this path, and you kind of loop them back together. So very easy to create this branch scenario. When I'm ready to distribute my story, you can, of course, download your story. You can download your story as an MP4 file. That can be done directly inside VR. If you have interactivity with like buttons or open response, then you can't download it as an MP4 file because you will lose the interactivity. But you can, of course, hit this publish button, and here you get this URL that you can put up in your LMS, some, for example, Docebo, if you would like so. So we integrate with the LMS platforms. Good. I think that was it, Glenn.
Stine, thank you for showing us practical ways and a very hands-on way to use AI to create not only immersive learning, but we saw something that was very interactive. Just a reminder, inside the chat there, for everyone who's with us on the webinar, there is an open and free link to the story that Stine is showing you on the screen right now. So you can copy that. You can take that away, and you can open that URL whenever you want to watch the full story of the XXL sales training and how they train their salespeople. Stine, what I think is interesting is for the first time in L&D, we are seeing live, natural, and free-flowing conversations with an AI character. Because what I noted you showed here on the storyboard is that you didn't have to create every scenario. The AI had the ability to understand what was being said, and then you also had what was a no match or a catch-all as well.
Yeah, for sure. This is adaptive learning, I would say. We create different outcomes, and based on learners' feedback, we redirect them to the information they need. And here you can really play. You can, for example, ask, okay, do you want to go for the more intermediate level, or do you want to go for the basic? And if I say basic, I get the basic training. So we can play around with this open response and giving the learner exactly what they need.
Stine, what do you see? I'm going to put you on the spot here in terms of learning outcomes. When people are learning by doing or have the ability to take a different branch as they start to make their choices through a training module, do you think the learning outcomes increase? And what do you hear globally from people and the clients you work with?
Absolutely. I think working in the e-learning segment for years now, I see when we create courses, we pretty much do the same thing. It's text and images one way or another, but we are missing that engagement and missing that something is unsuspected. So it's kind of easy to just hit the play button, go and get yourself a cup of coffee and get done with that course. But I think when we stop, we actually expect the learner to give some feedback to the course, then they actually need to pay attention. So I think having that possibility with interactivity is so important for the learning outcome, for sure.
So if I can summarize what you told us in the last 30 minutes, the first part we talked about adaptive learning. This is the ability for any AI to understand what your learning needs are or what your input is and take you on a certain pathway. And then the second part is what we just spoke about, which is the learning outcomes tend to increase as we become more immersive and more interactive with the way you do your training. And what are we trying to do as learning designers? We are trying to keep people's attention, hold their attention, and make sure they remember what they learn. I'd like to go now maybe to the chat. There's a few great questions in the chat, maybe slightly off the topic of where we went with it, which is in corporate engaging training. There's a great question there from Regis. I'll just read this one out. Stine, and maybe Harald too, if you want to rejoin stage or just do it in the chat, your thoughts on the use of translation and localization by AI. So the use of AI when it comes to translation. Have you found that a benefit, easier, harder? What have you found?
To translate content? Is that what the question was all about? Yeah, for sure. Like in VR, for example, you can add another translation, and then you can just swap between, okay, I want the character to speak English, or I want it to speak Norwegian or French. Very easy to swap around with, making it more localized, for sure. And also we have these custom characters, and I think it's actually very, I think it's very useful when you see, okay, these are typically those I'm working with. For example, you can have a uniform or whatever. That is also feels very close to you. It doesn't feel like a generic course someone has created. It feels like your course with your people and in your language, for sure.
You know what I like about the animation style is that it gets out of the road of the story. I see myself in the characters. You know, I'm not looking at a human avatar or something. I'm actually looking at animation, and I know it's it's an animation, but I see myself in the story, and I'm actually learning by doing. And I think it's very memorable. And you showed the ways that you can create scenes behind the character, so you can actually place them at the site of the training, so that next time someone goes there, they are at the scene of the training. Oh, there's the characters. Wow, look at this character library. This is fantastic.
So I just want to quickly touch upon that. So for all our users, they have around 30 default characters to choose from. A great variety. But as Glenn also touched upon, you could also order your own, having your specific uniform. And also if you have a certain person, CEO, introducing a course, it's amazing to see what we can create and really making it relatable for the learners. So yeah, for sure.
Stine, thank you. That was a wealth of knowledge. Thank you for the presentation. A huge thanks to Harald as well for setting the stage of where we are with AI in learning and development globally around the world. Maybe one last opportunity for anyone to ask their questions in the chat. We've got to say thank you to you today. That's why we are here, because of you. Thank you for joining this webinar. And the next thing I just want to show you, I will share my screen, something very special coming up, which is another webinar. And if you like what you saw today and you would like to get a bit more of what Stine is doing, this is a very important topic in learning and development. And perhaps a lot of people have different views on where we go with micro-learning. There's no doubt that our attention spans have become shorter, and you can blame things like TikTok and other social media, but what do we do as learning designers to keep people's attention and keep them learning? And what we saw with We Are Learning is that we have some powerful tools in the background to allow you, the learning designer, to, number one, keep AI in check, and number two, keep the learners on track. This is going to be AI-powered micro-learning strategies for quick course creation. Don't miss that one. Coming up on Friday the 13th, very ominous date, Friday the 13th. Check out the local time where you are in the world. And just a big thank you. If you liked what you saw and want a little bit more information, there's a QR code. You can just log on right now, log on by using that QR code, book with us, say hello. And once again, a big thanks from the We Are Learning team. Thanks from Harald as well. And thank you for joining our event today.